Welcome to Food, Wine, and Whiskey, a podcast about having fun conversations on tasty dishes, vinos, and spirits from around the world. Rob is your host. He is an avid home chef, WSET Level 2 award in wine, and a whiskey drinker and collector. Time to set the table. Here's Rob.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Food, Wine, and Whiskey. Glad you stopped by. We are going to have a fun conversation today, and I think we're all going to learn a little something that's related to the wine world, and it's part of the process of how does the wine get from the winemaker into our glass, kind of what that process is. And for me, what I find very curious, and I don't know a lot about, is the role of the importer, how all that works and starts, and you know, how that's developed and how you get bottles from Italy or Spain or wherever it might be back here to the United States where we can then get it in our glass and really enjoy it and ask questions and have a lot of fun drinking it. And so I have two guests on the show today. We have Travis Thompson. Travis, how you doing?
Good afternoon, Rob. I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing good. And Angelo Ferrari, just like the car. How you doing, Angelo?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing well. You both are from Beviamo, which is an importing company? An importer? How do you say that?
We're an importer and distributor.
Beviamo
means let's drink in Italian.
Okay, very nice. But we're going to have a fun conversation today. First of all, let's start with you telling us, Angelo, a little bit about your company, what you do, kind of a little bit about your portfolio, what's in the wines that you represent, and kind of just how you made those decisions. Then we'll dive a little deeper into maybe asking some questions about the entire process.
Wonderful. So first of all, thank you so much for having us on your show. It's a privilege to be here. So Beviamo means let's drink. My background, my heritage is Italian. And I think the number one thing that I've tried to do is bring in the wines that Italians drink at their table. So wines from family-owned vineyards, a lot of regional specialties, wines that people drink every day, wines that have generations of history, culture, and just beautiful winemaking. And that's what we've tried to bring in this market, and so far, so good.
Yeah, and just so listeners know, we're in Houston, so you bring the wines into the Houston market's what we're talking about, which to me, Angelo, is a great market for wine. I mean, I think there's the consumers here absolutely love wine, and they always want to explore and try new things. So I think it gives you a little flexibility to your point, bring in some cool and fun things that maybe they haven't seen on the shelf. They don't know the brand, but with the right information given to them by somebody like Travis, they can get educated on what that wine is and the story behind the people who are making the wine, and maybe it intrigues them a little bit to get it in the glass and start enjoying it.
Absolutely. So Texas is one of the emerging market in the United States for wine in general, especially Italian wine, but whichever wine it is. There's a lot of wine on the East Coast, but you can find anything in New York. But it's a very saturated market for any winemaker, but especially for the small winemaker, which is what we focus on. We focus on small to medium-sized wineries. And we do find that the Texas consumer every day is more open to trying not only wines that aren't factory-made wines, but wines that have a different profile, wines that have a different name. As you know, Italy has so many different grapes. And it's been really cool the last few years to see the market evolve into wanting to try different varietals and different wines from different areas, whether it's Veneto or Piemonte or Toscana. There are so many wines other than your Chianti, other than your Barbera, other than your Pinot Grigio. That's
absolutely.
Very interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Abruzzo's doing some great things. I think Sicily has some great wines. I mean, just Alto Adige has some great wines.
La Marque.
Yeah, there's some. I mean, I always say, there's usually a grape or two that'll get you into a country or a region, and then once you get in with those two main grapes, two or three, it's always fun to explore and see what else is in that area. And I think wine drinkers who are in it to kind of be a little bit geeky, a little bit nerdy about really wanting to explore what the world of wine offers. I think that's something that we enjoy doing.
Or what Italy really does really well is like how Italy can introduce you to a grape, say Sangiovese or Barbera or Montepulciano di Abruzzo, and then you discover that there's multiple levels of it. There's Sangiovese in the form of course, Chianti Classico Reserva, Gran Selezione, and then over in Montepulciano, you've got your entry level, and then you've got your reservas, and then I'm not sure, Angelo, if they even go further than that. But I mean, like, there's a fairly big difference between your entry level kind of pizza wine, air quotes, and then moving on into like a reserva, that's got some time in oak, that's kind of a more developed, mature drinking red wine.
Oh, absolutely. But I also think it's fun that, a Abruzzo might get you there. The Montepulciano grape might get you to Abruzzo, but then you discover Pecorino and go, oh, wow, what a wonderful wine this is.
Montepulciano is a perfect example. So as I just mentioned how the market has evolved. On the producer side, it's evolved as well. Montepulciano d'Abruzzo used to be known as your really cheap entry-level wine that you found at every single, what is it called, the checkered tablecloth restaurant in the country.
Yeah.
And it still is a great value for the price, but the quality, as wine-making techniques have evolved in the world, the quality of Montepulciano has greatly evolved. That entry level today is a delicious glass of wine. We carry a beautiful wine called Citra, which is one of the largest producers in the world it's the largest, actually, in Abruzzo. But from their line, we also have the single vineyard Montepulciano and the Pecorino, single vineyard Pecorino, which is spectacular.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, one of the questions that comes to my mind is, so you made mention, Angelo, that, you look for that family kind of producer. They're farmers. They've got their fingers in the dirt.
Absolutely.
They're out there working in the field. And you go, okay, I want to represent or bring your wines and let people, experience these. There's got to be, it's got to make sense, right? They've got to have a large enough production to be able to support what you want to bring over. Talk us through what you look for. What do they have to produce? What do they have to have available for you to bring that wine over?
Well, most of the wineries, so in the wine world, the winery that produces 100,000 or 200,000 bottles is maybe considered small.
Yeah.
But for us, it's not necessarily super small. I mean, I wish that from every winery we sold 200,000 bottles of. That's probably maybe the total of what we sold last year. But what I look mainly for is the quality. And I really look for the connection with the winemaker. The winemaker that can really connect to his terroir, to his wine, to his family, and explain to me, the passion that they have behind the wine. Because for me as an Italian, it's part of my culture. It's part of my history to delve into these different regions and different wines. And something that excites me is bringing in a wine from a small farmer in Lombardia, for example, that could never imagine to have his wines in Texas.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden we have him here, whether it's at Specs or HEB or at different restaurants.
Sure.
I think that's beautiful.
Well, and you bring up a good point, because I went to, last week, a week ago today, we had the Taste of Italy here from the Italian Chamber of Commerce. And, I walked around and did a lot of the tasting there. And on most of the tables, they had the little card out that said, looking for an importer.
Sure.
And so the point I'm making is, to what you just said, Angelo, these producers in Italy would love to get their wines into the States, but specifically Texas, because they know it's a great market for their wines.
Sure. So as I just mentioned, I look for the connection with the supplier and obviously the quality of the wine. But then we get to the business side. So how quickly can they bottle something? What's the price? What's the support behind the wine? Whether it's marketing, do they come and visit the market? What's the education behind it? It's several factors that go into choosing a wine.
And also, to your point, it makes me think about the importer that they select. I was thinking when I asked the question about how much do they produce, can they produce enough for you to bring it in? I'm thinking probably too big a scale. Somebody like a Specs that's going over to buy wines, they may have stores all over, where you're a little more niche. You're looking for a different type of wine, but you're also looking for a different type of producer. The volume doesn't have to be, to your point, significantly huge. 100,000, 200,000 cases is plenty to bring some in. It may not, you may sell out of it pretty quick if it's pretty popular, but it's a good match for you, because you're trying to. How often do you change your inventory? I'm assuming that you don't get the same wine year after year after year, or do you?
Well, so far we've been very faithful to our suppliers, and we do add on wines as we find things that are interesting, or as our customers ask us for things. But going back for a moment, so we are in Specs. We do service 220 stores around the state, and also HEB. But for example, in every line, you might have I'm thinking of the Pietro Becconcini from Tuscany. You might have your Chianti. Maybe the Chianti belongs in all the stores, and they have the quantity for all the stores. But they might have their single vineyard Reciso, which is a Sangiovese, that they only produce maybe, 7,000 bottles of this.
Oh, wow.
So that's something more select and at a different price point that only goes maybe into 40 stores.
Sure.
That kind of stuff.
Strategically
And only
placed.
into 20 restaurants instead of being accessible to every restaurant.
Specs also buys wines and goes over. Do they bring that in themselves, or do they have to go through you always, somebody like you?
Well, legally, as per TABC law, Specs does have to go through an importer.
So let's-
I'm sorry, they have to go, an importer and distributor.
Yeah.
Because they're a retailer.
So let's go over that real quick. Let's talk about, here in the States, what those layers are. We have the producer in Italy. They have to go through an importer to bring their wine over. The wines then have to go. The importer will work with a restaurant or a retail store to buy it, but then it has to go to a distributor to get to the retail store or the restaurant.
Correct. So depending on the state that you're in, so first of all, you need to have a federal importer's license. Many states make you choose one or the other, an importer or a distributor. Luckily, in Texas, we can be both.
That's nice.
We have a federal importer's permit, and then we have a state distributor's permit. So we can import into the state of Texas or any state in the union and also distribute in the state of Texas.
Boy, that makes it nice.
Oh, absolutely.
To be able to do that.
So in a sense, we almost cut out a middleman.
Yeah.
Because we do both of those tiers.
And how does that's got to benefit the consumer, I would think, a little bit.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Sure.
So let's get back to the business of it. And you said you look for the wines that you think about in Italy that are on the table that people enjoy drinking. And look, I'll be the first to say, a lot of the wines that we get here that have the fancy labels and things, they can be great, but they can be okay too. But a lot of the table wines, when you go to Italy or even over to France, there can be some fantastic wines that are just not very expensive, but very well made. So
Absolutely. So the old world winemaker makes his wine to go with his food. So that already is a huge plus. And that's the kind of wine we try to bring in. Obviously, more complex palates, like, maybe more highly structured wines. We do have a consumer base that loves Napa Cabs, which are great. A lot of steak here in Texas, so there's a lot of big, bold reds. But I feel that people need to discover the easy drinking stuff that you can drink a second glass of, if you're at a party, a second bottle of.
Yeah.
And that's what I call them table wines, but it's table. It's just a level above table. It's not a reserve wine. In Italy, we don't drink a reserve wine every day.
Yeah. Well, when we think about for the consumer and they think table wine versus, the wines that come from a DOC or DOCG, these are still wines that might be DOC. I don't want listeners to think table wine. It's not DOC or DOCG, because I think so many times the American consumer is told in Italian wines to look for that, for
Correct.
quality, the DOC or the DOCG on the label.
Yeah, some of the more highly rated wines coming from Italy are the Super Tuscans.
Sure.
And so those are IGT.
Yeah.
Which are a level below DOC and just a level above table wines.
Yeah.
But they are spectacular blends at all different prices.
Yeah, somewhat long history of Super Tuscans. And is that an American thing? Super
Absolutely.
Tuscan in
If you ask
Italy.
an Italian, nobody will know what that is.
What do they call those wines? When we think of Sassicaia
IGT.
or just IGT.
Yeah, well, obviously something like Sassicaia has a name.
Yeah.
But as far as
if it's just from that region, and
correct,
they don't call it a super like anything that I think Americans see with Toscana on it or something. They just say, "Oh, it's a Super Tuscan,"
Yeah, it's an IGT, so that allows the winemaker. If we take Tuscany as an example, there's very strict rules as far as the blends and the yield per acre or per hectare on what that wine can be. So if we take, I guess, Chianti, it has to be, I think, 85% or 80% Sangiovese,
Correct.
and then some other local blends. So let's say the guy has Cabernet Sauvignon. He doesn't want to throw it away, so he just makes, he adds it into his wine, and instead of it being a Chianti, it becomes an IGT.
Yep.
So that allows, and it allows the winemaker more, in a sense, more creativity and a freer hand to use what he has at his disposal.
And that kind of started because in that region, how do you say that region? Bulgari?
Bulgari is in Tuscany.
They had found that the grapes of Bordeaux just did really well in that region, but the government of Italy that governed that region didn't allow those grapes, and that's why they ultimately became a table wine.
Correct.
But as time has gone on, the Italian government has kind of shifted, and it's a fluid process.
Yeah,
They're always
there's a Bulgari DOC.
Sure,
so it changes.
Sure. And I think the same happens even in regions like Tuscany when you talk about Chianti and things like that. You know, the requirements for blending, or you couldn't put a Merlot or a little Cab in there, now you can, or you used to have to have some white wine in there, now you don't, and things like that.
Correct.
So it's always changing.
Yeah, now you can add a little bit of Cabernet.
Yeah.
And now they just allowed for them to go back and make it with the old formula that had a white grape in it.
Yeah.
A couple of years ago, that had become the IGT. Now it's become the formula again, or allowable.
So let's jump to, we've talked a little bit about just, being an importer and the wines and things like that. But one of the questions I have is, what makes someone go, I want to be an importer? I think that's the business I'm going to get in. Obviously, there's got to be some love, some passion for wine. I wouldn't assume it's just business. You got to enjoy the beverage. You're Italian, so that it's in your blood. I also heard that you can sing a little bit.
So my grandfather was a farmer.
Okay.
As most winemakers are today, they're just simple farmers. He was a farmer that mainly cultivated grapes and made wine, but he sold his grapes to a larger producer. 100 years ago in Italy, nobody thought about bottling their own wine.
Yeah.
It was all bulk or your table wine. I was an opera singer. I sang all over the world. And wine always was a part of my culture, and it was a hobby and a passion. I wanted to start a business. I kind of started into wine and all of a sudden fell into it. But if you want to be a distributor, you soon find out that to be a distributor in Texas, you better have that importer's license.
Okay.
So by default, you become an importer and a distributor.
Okay.
Angelo, can you tell us how did you, what made your decision to bring the first pallet?
So we're from Brescia, from the Lake Garda region, and I remember tasting our first wines, which was the Garda Red Blend, that I was looking at for a business, and it's just I was enamored with the winemaker and his winery and his wines, and we decided to try it. We took our first step and see what would happen, and it's slowly evolved, and then you start catering to whatever the market wants and where you see growth, and if and as time goes by, you start being able to ascertain, is this wine fit for this market?
Right.
A lot of so having said that, a lot of table wines, as we perceive them in Italy, may not be a hit in the States because they don't have oak, for example.
Okay.
So we have to find the wines that have a little bit more of a body structure to them, oak or not oak, but that we think.
Or we have to find better drinkers.
Exactly.
to get away from that oak.
Which is how Travis joined our team.
There you go.
So Travis, why don't you tell us a little bit what we have in our glass?
So our opening wine here, this is a 100% Chardonnay. This is a 2017 vintage from Brescia, near Angelo's hometown. And this wine spends over 40 months on the lees, made in the Champagne method. Rob, what do you think of it?
Absolutely delicious. Yeah, I'm enjoying this very much. Thank you for sharing.
So this is a great example of what Italy has to offer. In Brescia, there's a region called Franciacorta. Franciacorta is world renowned for its Champagne method wines. Andrea Perri, who's the owner of this winery, the Perri Bigogna, is maybe 500 yards from the Franciacorta cutoff line. Still Brescia, so he gets the same soil, same sun, and everything, and he makes these amazing sparkling wines that are beautiful, but maybe at a third less or a quarter less.
Well, that's what I wanted to mention, because this absolutely has that brioche kind of note on it, and you'd mentioned,
sure.
Angelo, that this 42 months on the lees? I mean, you're getting up there with the time that some champagnes are 36 to 42 to 48 months. Some are longer, but this is competing with that very well. But price point, to your point, Angelo, champagnes, I think when you're at the floor of a champagne, you're still $50-$55.
Yeah, and you would see this wine at specs for probably in the mid-30s.
See,
and anything comparable French would be on 3 or 4 times as much.
Really?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Obviously, France has and very deservedly so. They have the name, Champagne made
Sure.
name and method. But like anywhere else, if you want a good champagne, get a vintage champagne. Get something really, from a smaller house, from a grower.
Sure. 'Cause when you say champagne method, the method's the same.
Sure.
They may call it champagne, but the effort, the time,
process
that's
is the
what
same.
makes it go, okay, the quality should be there at the end, and it is. It clearly is in this wine. But I'm not spending $55, $60 on it, which is, to be able to buy 2 of these makes me and my wife happy. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, the Perrier, and they make a rosé, which is 80% Pinot Noir, 20% Chardonnay. That's I think about 35 or 38 months on the lees. That's my wife's favorite wine. I mean, regardless of me selling it or not, she loves the wine, and it just shows you some of the value that you can get in these tiny communes in Italy. And I think Perry, across our portfolio is probably one of my favorite wines that we offer. Regardless whether it's sparkling or still, it's a really high quality wine that we can offer at a great price.
Yeah, and Travis, you know me, I love Italy's probably my favorite country to drink wine from. And anywhere in the world, no matter what country or region you go to, you can find expensive wine. That's not hard.
Oh, sure.
What I enjoy and what I love is finding wines that punch up. Finding something that you tell me this costs $30, and then you drink it and go, I'd have paid $50. I'm glad I'm not, but I would have, because it's that good. And this would be an example of that. This is really good.
Well, I mean, and one of the wines that you and I have tried together is one of our. It's an Aliatico from La Marque.
Yeah.
And that's a really cool wine that we maybe Angelo can tell us in a minute how he found that wine, but that's just it's kind of just somewhere between, as far as body goes, somewhere between like a Pinot Noir and a Sangiovese. But it's an Aliatico from, the coast of Italy, in La Marque, on the eastern coast of Italy. And it's tremendous for, I don't know, I think we had it in specs for probably in the upper 20s. Mm-hmm. And it's, just a tremendous little commune in Italy that makes great wine. But they the majority of their wine, they just put into big glass jars and take it to the, and sell it, by the glass in town center. And they're big farmers. They make cherry wine. They're just... It's such a kind of a local feel to how Italy does business. I'm excited to go over there and kind of feel it for myself in a few weeks, and see what that business really feels like once you're kind of intimately around it in Italy. But I've had a very fortunate chance to get to know it from the stateside viewpoint.
Yeah. Well, let's talk again. You carry wines from California, Napa Valley, or other places in California as well?
Just at
Paso or anywhere?
No, just Napa. Calistoga.
Okay. Calistoga, up north. Okay.
Which is the northernmost AVA for Napa.
Okay. And then I think do you have some wine from Washington?
Yes, from Walla Walla.
From Walla Walla. Anything from Oregon?
No, nothing from Oregon.
Okay.
We carry Balboa from Walla Walla. Super interesting grapes up there. We've got their Carmenere that we carry is delicious.
Yeah.
They've also shown us a really good example of their Sangiovese that we carry, kind of at a small scale for restaurants, and we've brought it in specifically for some wine dinners. They do a Rhone blend, a Rhone white blend that's absolutely delicious. Roussanne, Viognier, and Grenache Blanc. There's some grapes you don't often find at the market, but they do it really, really well up there.
Very cool. Any other regions in the States that you all cover?
Yes, so we have one from, we have a great winery from Long Island, New York.
Oh, really?
RGNY from the North Fork.
Okay, and the wine from there is?
So we have their sparkling, which is Riesling, I believe.
Yeah, so it's a sparkling Riesling.
That's interesting.
Made in the Champagne method.
Yeah. And then we also carry a Viognier, a Sauvignon Blanc, and then a Simeon Sauvignon Blanc blend.
Okay, like a Bordeaux white blend.
And a red Bordeaux blend.
Oh, really?
Surprisingly good. These are delicious wines. I never knew that. We're all familiar with the Finger Lakes.
That's what I thought. When you said New York, thought you were going to Finger Lakes. Yeah, but
which are a lot of Rieslings, kind of going to the sweeter side. No, these are very legit wines.
Wow,
very interesting. It's been an education.
And then any other New World countries you represented? Or we go right over to.
No, we do have some wines from which have done really well for us as well. Uruguay.
Okay.
With their Tanat blends.
Yeah, I know that's up and coming. Yeah.
A couple of wines from Argentina, and then a great winery from Mexico.
Oh, really?
But from the Parras region, which is south of, it's just south of Texas. Not the Valle of Guadalupe, but about 2.5 hours south of Laredo. 5,000 or 6,000 feet in altitude, and that's the oldest wine producing region in the continent. They're right next door to Casa Madero.
What's the grapes coming from them?
We have Syrah, Cabernet Sauvignon, Cabernet Franc, Merlot.
One of the most interesting wines that we distribute from them is a white Cabernet.
Yeah.
So it's of course the red Cabernet grape, but only spends about 40 minutes with skin contact, and then they do a direct press, and so then you're just getting the white juice. So I mean, like, you know what, Rob, as you know, whether it's red or white, all that pulp is the same color. It's that kind of fleshy white color, and that's the color this wine is vinified as, and they call it the RGMX Blanco. So it's just a white Cabernet Sauvignon, and it drinks like a white wine. You know, it's very, you know, crisp and fruity, and I mean, it's really a cool wine. You know, and it's a wine that we carry in really a surprising amount of restaurants for about $16 a glass, and it's just a lot of people. They make their first purchase out of curiosity, and they buy the second glass because they enjoy it.
Sure, absolutely. Well, let's then jump to the old world. We're in Italy, obviously. What are the regions in Italy that you bring wines in from?
All the major regions: Piemonte, Lombardia, Veneto, Puglia, Sicily, Sardinia.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
Lazio, Abruzzo, Tuscany.
So, I mean, Italy's covered.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Well, it's hard to say because there's Friuli also.
Oh, really? Friuli?
Veneto.
We do Friuli very well. I mean, and you know, Rob, before we joined your podcast today, we were at the road show, I think they call it, of Vin Italy. They did a local iteration of that where we tasted several wineries that were, you know, looking for a group like us to, you know, carry their wine in the States. But, you know, these were several of them were wineries from Friuli. And Friuli does white wine extremely well. I mean, whether it's Friulano, Ribolla Giallo, or Sauvignon, Pinot Grigio, they make just kind of the epitome of these grapes. I mean, they're just extremely well done. And then, of course, you've got, they do Merlot very well.
Cabernet Franc.
Cabernet
Pinot
Franc.
Noir.
Cabernet Franc. Really?
Refosco. I mean, so there's some really unique, you know, fairly unheard of grapes. Scripatino and Pignolo are two other grapes that we've had, you know, very, very, some good success with in selling, especially in a blend. And these are grapes that can age for, you know, quite a long time. And, you know, we recently had a blend that was, you know, so this podcast is being recorded in March of 2024. We just sold out of our 2013. That was a blend of Scripatino and Pignolo. It was just delicious. And, you know, our customer base really, really enjoyed it.
Awesome. Other old world countries?
Spain.
Spain?
We do quite a bit of Spain, mainly northern Spain.
Okay.
Ribera del Duero, Rioja, Zaragoza, and Navarra.
Nice. Okay. So the day in the life, the week in the life, the month in the life, the year in the life of an importer. I mean, I'm curious, so I'm assuming some of our listeners are curious. How does this work? You know, you think, okay, you get your license, and now you're an importer. Well, now you got to get wines into your inventory that you're representing. And is this a mix of you traveling and going to find wineries and then just tasting through without them knowing that you're there? And then you kind of go, hey, by the way, or is it that and also, you know, winery or producers that are looking for distributors in certain markets and they reach out and go, hey, by the way, would you be interested in representing our wines? Can we send you some bottles?
It's a little bit of both.
Okay.
I certainly get a lot of producers contacting us or sending us samples. But for the most part, it's us, it's me going out to the wineries and scouting out the product, the people, you know, trying to find that connection, evaluating the wines, making sure that everything fits our criteria. And then, it's a long process. We have to pick the wine. If the price is right and everything, if all that goes well, then you have to do something that's called the label approval. Label approval can take 2 or 3 weeks on the federal side, the TTB approval. After that, you have to do a state approval. So all that takes quite a while. And then you import the wine, which takes about a month and a half to get it here, get it into your warehouse, and then hopefully start going out and selling it.
So when you're looking to work with a producer, obviously you already have a relationship with somebody that's done. If it's a new relationship, are you looking for a producer, or does it matter? Do do you want them to have some inventory that you can kind of get your hands on pretty quick, or do you look sometimes and taste what they have and then buy futures of something that, just because you like the style or the quality of the wines that they showed you?
For what we do, they usually have an inventory.
Okay.
Futures is more something like for Bordeaux or stuff like that. But for us, mainly, they usually, depending on the time of the year, if you go at the end of the year, maybe they've run through the vintage of a lot of stuff. But mainly, it's they have a inventory, and their biggest thing is printing labels, getting labels, putting them on the bottle. Depending on the size of what they are, is how quickly that can be done.
And do you help? Obviously, you're part of helping with the label. Is there things that you want to have on the bottle?
Absolutely.
And things that are required from the TTB to be on the bottle?
Correct.
If they're already distributing in the States but not in Texas or not in Houston, I'm assuming that process is a little bit easier? It's just changing a few things?
It's a little easier only in the sense that they understand the process a little more.
Okay.
And they just have to just change the imported by X, whoever that might be. But it still takes the same amount of time from the TTB and the TABC.
So when you have wines from, let's go back to Napa Valley, what do you look for? Because you made the comment, that when you go to your home country, it's those table wines. It's those wines that little producers and really pack a punch, if you will. When you go to Napa, when most people hear Napa, they go, oh boy, Napa Cabs, cha-ching, cha-ching. What are you looking for there? I still think you can find some value there. We know a few of the small farmer types that still have their fingers in the dirt, so to speak. But what do you all look for? What do you represent from Napa?
Well, I mean, the one California producer that we carry is Barlow Vineyards. They're in Calistoga, and for this vineyard, they're farmers first, and they'll gladly claim that. But we carry their a red blend, what they call Barouge, which is a mix of the words Barlow and Rouge. And we carry their pure Cabernet Sauvignon, and then in small quantities their Merlot, and then again in small quantity their family selection, which is kind of their big boy. Their long time at oak, pure Cabernet Sauvignon. And we selected this wine because they were farmers first, they were small production. We identified with their culture. And also, it's a wine that us and, our largest retailer, Specs, we agreed on. And so it was a project that we went in together and decided that it was a good fit. But also, we as a restaurant providing distributor, it's just very, very good wine. This is Cabernet that sits in a barrel for over 2 years. And so, at value, you're looking at a, low in the low 50s for a bottle of wine at Specs, where, this Cabernet spends over 2 years in a new French oak barrel, and you can pick it up at Specs for $52, $54, and it's incredible.
And it's not just Napa Valley; it's Napa Valley, Calistoga.
Correct.
And
So,
typically that wine he's talking about is a 2016, 2015.
It's got some age on it,
and that's the current release. So we always look for something unique, and our Barlow Vineyard is just spectacular. They're farmers first. They sell 80% of their production to bigger guys. And they only bottle about 500 cases of their mainstays, the Barouge and the Cabernet, and their family selection. And this is just another facet to the stuff that we look at. It's very unique. Their family vineyards, they have their family selection. It's 4 family members. They each pick a barrel, then they blend the wine, and they only bottle about 95 to 99 cases a year of that.
Oh, wow.
So that right there is a beautiful story to tell.
That is a beautiful story. That's very cool. So getting a bottle of that is a unique experience.
And it's old style Napa. So
it's not oaky.
Exactly. Yeah, they're very well balanced. They have oak, but it's a very well balanced, very well structured product.
Typical alcohol in that wine? Is it 14 and a half?
Yeah, exactly. Right.
What it should be.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah.
They're doing it right. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about, we've talked about how you got to go and an importer's got to develop those relationships to get inventory to have wines to distribute. How do you know where to go in the market to? I'm assuming there's another profile of a restaurant or you're in Specs, but other type of stores, retail shops that would carry your product or be, interested in carrying your product.
Yeah. So outside of Specs, we have, a lot of times a winery will allow us to bring in, 30, 40, 60 cases, at a time of a certain wine that me and my coworker, we'll use it as we'll call it an on-premise only wine, to where we're only going to bring it to the wine bars and restaurants of Houston. That's something special, to where because they're only going to bring us say 80 cases in a year, where some people may think like, oh man, that sucks, but for us it's a unique opportunity to bring it to a wine bar that you may see it, one of the 8 or 10 wine bars in Houston, to where it's going to be on a unique flight. It's going to be offered at a by the glass selection, maybe for half the year at a restaurant. And so one of the things that we try and identify with is, like family-owned restaurants or restaurants that do like a rotating wine selection, because, just to be blunt, we don't offer Camus. We don't offer Bella Gloss. So we're not going to be at, your those every steakhouse that you see downtown. We're not going to be those primary wines that you see in the little glass storage. We're going to be that kind of cool wine that's being offered in a seasonal selection or a Somm selection or something like that. That we brought in, we made the connection, we showed the wine, and it worked. So that sommelier, that wine buyer was like, "Wow, this is really good. I want to show this to my audience." And so we're able to make that connection and bring in a cool wine that not everybody's seen before, but it's really, really good and a great value.
I got to think too that Italian places here in town got to be big on the list, right?
Sure.
Some of the truly authentic restaurants, and Rob, I hope it's okay to name drop a few,
sure.
But like Davanti, they down on West Lane, they offer some truly authentic, great Italian food, or like Bombetta off of
West Alabama.
West Alabama, they again some truly authentic, great Italian food, pure Italian food, pure Italian list. So everything that's on their menu is going to be Italian. And so those are some of the people that we work with. And these are small shops, but they do. It's a really great partnership for us because it's a way to showcase our authentic Italian wine with their authentic Italian food and wine list.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah,
that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, but also I would add to that because of our wines all of our wines are very food driven. So yes, it's great to sell to the Italian restaurants. These are just great wines.
Yeah, I was going to mention that I was just going to say that part of the Taste of Italy that we did was with Jeremy Parzan talking about how barbecue can go with Italian wines.
A burger, a pizza, chicken,
burger,
whatever,
a pizza. So
whatever it might be.
We always say old world wines are meant to go with food, but it doesn't have to be. It's great with the food from where they come from, Italian food, Italian wine, but they're not pigeonholed just to that. I have Italian wine with all different kinds of food. I'll have Italian food with French wine. I'll have French food with Italian wine. They go very well together.
Absolutely.
Like a Chianti Reserva's, one of my go-to hamburger wines. It's
sure.
Just the Sangiovese grape works. It's that medium-bodied grape that I'd say probably a Chianti Reserva or a Tempranillo is my go-to hamburger wine.
Yeah,
it just plays well with the meat and the fat and it's just and they're not terribly expensive. It's just kind of my go-to for a hamburger wine.
So you guys are on the road quite a bit. Are you traveling? How much a year do you travel, Angelo, to go to different parts of the country, different parts of the world? Is this a continuing thing, or does an importer your size kind of go, okay, I'm kind of I've got the clientele that I want. I'm at the size that I want. Or are you always looking to find new and curious things? Because you mentioned early, you kind of keep the relationships with the producers you have now. But I'm assuming if there's something cool or fun out there, you want to find it, and if you can bring it in and add it to what you're offering, you want to do that.
Well, sure. The market here, our market is always evolving. As on the producer side, it's as well always evolving. There's always new stuff. People are looking for new stuff. There's new stuff in the press. I probably travel overseas a few times a year.
Okay.
Because I have the opportunity to go to either trade shows or visit wineries. And I bounce around the state quite a bit. And Travis bounces around the whole city on a daily basis.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of moving around.
Yeah.
Sometimes wineries want you to come and sing for them over in Italy.
Sure.
You want to sing now? Well, what else do you think listeners not knowing, they hear importer and they, I always thought it's this cool kind of thing, and I still think it's a very cool thing that you guys get to go out and do the hard work of finding these awesome wines that we get to enjoy. But is there anything that you guys would want to mention or talk about that you think is interesting to the average wine drinker that may not know about the import business?
I mean, I think the first thing that comes to my mind is obviously know your wine, know your customer, but obviously know the business side of it. Every time we have a passion or a hobby, it seems easy to start a business. I make a great burger, I'm going to open a restaurant.
Yeah.
But make a burger for 70 people. That's different.
Yeah.
It's kind of same on the wine.
Sure.
If I love this wine, I'm going to bring in 100 cases. Well, hold on a second. No, I have 1,200 bottles to sell.
Yeah.
The same kind of
absolutely. Process. Absolutely. And I think that brings up a very good point, because I always say, I think, the average wine drinker gets tied up in what they like and don't like, and they kind of shift that to quality and not quality. It doesn't necessarily mean that. Just because you don't like a wine, doesn't hit on your palate, doesn't mean it's not a well-made quality wine. So
Correct.
Part of, I would think, the people who work for you have to be able to discern that. What's a quality wine versus what I like. I may not like it, but I think it would do well in our market.
Right. So just to iterate, everything we have is quality wine at Beviamo.
No. Exactly. I mean, very important.
But however, but that's a really valid point. Myself as a buyer and any buyer in the trade, you can't really buy for what you like, because what I like as an Italian may not be what 99% of the people don't like.
Sure.
Travis may be in love with a specific blend from Piedmont, but his customer wants Pinot Grigio, so he better be able to speak to that wine,
sure,
and understand what his customer likes, and then kind of guide his customer in that path. I think that's a big thing, is knowing your customer, and know. So you like that Pinot Grigio? Well, let's try this other white wine that's in that path, and your palate evolves together, and I think that's very interesting.
Well, I mean, like as we saw today, at the Taste of Italy or the Vin Italy event, is that. Like you and I may love, a Marzamino and Scripatino or whatever this odd blend may be, or, Scripatino and Pignolo, just whatever the blend is, it may taste amazing, but to put that on a label and try and sell that to somebody at H-E-B or Specs or a wine list at a great restaurant, we have to think about, maybe just somebody would rather see, Nebbiolo. Maybe somebody would rather see Barbaresco, Barolo, Chianti,
Well, sure.
And so, we have to consider, this, 2012 Marzamino that we brought in, 30 cases of, what are we going to do with it? We loved it as, an importer and, buyers of wine on this level in our market. But who's going to buy it? I mean, for anybody listening, if you've never had aged Marzamino, it's delicious. But, pretend there's an instance where we picked up 30 cases, who's going to buy it?
But that's where I would think you're targeting the wine shops and restaurants that have cool food with already a kind of a cool wine list, because I think when you go to a grocery store, the buyers there are looking for what you said, Napa Valley Cabernet or a grape, Pinot Noir, maybe a Barbaresco Barolo, but very unlikely. But typically it's the grapes of Bordeaux, I think, mostly, and then it's Pinot Grigio, it's Sauvignon Blanc, and it's Chardonnay.
Because we all go towards what we know.
Sure.
But even the cool wine shop or the cool restaurant, they have to cater to their customer.
Sure.
If they only have these esoteric niche, grapes that nobody can pronounce, especially here, that's very difficult.
Yeah.
So they have to have a balance. They have to balance. They do have to have their Cab, their Chianti, their
sure
Sauvignon Blanc, whatever it is, and slowly introduce something different.
This is the pivot.
Or exactly.
Yeah.
Have it
this
available.
is, if you like this, let me show you this.
Absolutely.
Well, and where I found that the turning point is where if somebody say that they've had grapes from Tuscany that they loved, where it's like, well, have you ever had a Chardonnay from Tuscany? Have you ever had a Merlot, or maybe you've had a Merlot, but have you ever had a pure Cabernet from Tuscany? And maybe not. Well, let me show you that. Or it's like you've had this region. Well, let me show you this grape. Like, say you trust Tuscany.
I think it's a great point. Yeah. That's part of the exploration of wine. The fun in the journey is to pick a grape, to your point, and see how it's done from different regions around the world. Because cool climate, warmer climate, it's gonna put something different in the bottle, which is a cool thing to go through and just kind of experience.
And every well-made wine should reflect its terroir. It should reflect from where it comes from.
We always say sense of place.
Yeah, and it's a cool thing to see a Cabernet from here as opposed to Cabernet from South Africa, as opposed to Cabernet from France and from Italy. It's really cool.
I mean, just the other day, I had of course, we all know that Oregon is famous for their Pinot Noir. Well, just a drop less and drop down in the scale, of intensity, I had a Gamay from Oregon that was tremendous, and so it's, kind of you bring that same principle over to Tuscany or Argentina, find a grape that you like, whether it's a Malbec in Argentina or Sangiovese in Tuscany, and, find a grape that's similar in intensity or profile, but then just apply it to that region and see what they can do with it. I hear that there's maybe one or two producers in Italy that make Malbec. I know whenever I go over there in a few weeks, I'd love to try and find one of those and just see what Malbec from Italy tastes like.
Yeah, absolutely. That's part of the journey, part of the fun. Gentlemen, any last words before we close out this episode?
No, I just want to say thank you very much for your time, for the opportunity for us to talk a little bit about our story. And thank you.
So, obviously, they can't buy wines from you. They can go on your website, see where your wines are distributed.
Actually, they can.
Okay.
We have a particular license, which is the G license in Texas, where you can come to us and buy it, or on our website and purchase a wine.
So let's tell everybody your website address, and let's tell them where you are physically if they want to. Do you want them to stop in? Or is it better just to go to the website, order, and then
absolutely come on in?
They can get a little consultation here, and somebody can talk to them about the wines.
So it's beviamointernational.com.
Okay.
And we're 16840 Clay Road, Suite 104, right off of Highway 6 and Clay Road.
And, come in and just say, hey, I want to buy wine, show me around. And I would be more than happy to take you on a walk around our warehouse. And if you say, hey, I want a medium-bodied red, let me take you a tour of our medium-bodied reds and, see what fits your budget and your palate. And
pick up a couple bottles.
Yeah, we'll come out with a 6-pack of something fun, I promise you.
Absolutely. Well, we'll put all the links and everything down in the description of this episode so that listeners can go there and find it. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming on. Fun conversation.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thanks,
interesting to kind of pull the veil back a little bit on what an importer does. So thank you guys for doing that. Thanks, everybody, for listening to this episode of Food, Wine, and Whiskey. And until our next episode, enjoy your next pour.